My dear one, something was said in a quiet moment, something never meant for many ears. It was shared gently, almost carefully, as if the person speaking knew these words were heavy. And somehow, with every passing day, those words have been moving closer to you, even if you have not heard them yet. The person you love stood in front of someone they truly trust, and for one brief moment, everything in their face changed. Their voice softened, their words slowed. It was like they were trying to protect something fragile, something too valuable to speak about in a careless way. What they said about you did not begin with your name. It began with silence, and that silence meant everything. Do not leave yet, because what happened in that conversation was not small. Stay to the end, because one sentence changed the whole air around them. Before your name was even spoken, emotion had already entered the room. They looked away first, not because they had nothing to say, but because they had too much to say and did not know where to begin. Then the other person asked a simple question. Why do you keep thinking about them? For a few long seconds there was no answer, but that pause said more than a fast reply ever could. Sometimes truth comes slowly because it is real. Sometimes the heart needs more time to turn deep feelings into words. And when they finally answered, every word came out with care, like those thoughts had been living inside them for a very long time. They said they could not fully explain it, but there was something about you that stayed with them, even while life kept moving. Those words were not light. They came after many late nights, private memories and feelings they had never spoken out loud before. The person sitting across from them noticed it right away. Even while talking, they seemed lost somewhere else, almost caught in old memories. Maybe they were remembering your voice, maybe your smile, maybe one small thing you never thought anyone would hold on to for so long. Then the question came again. Is it serious? Once more silence appeared. Not confusion, not fear, just the kind of silence that comes when someone already knows the answer, but realizes the answer is much bigger than they want to admit. Then they finally said it. Every time they tried to ignore what they felt, something always pulled them back to you. That confession changed everything. It was no longer casual talk. It had crossed into that deeper place where hidden feelings refused to stay hidden. The listener leaned in. They understood this was not about passing emotion. This was about something that had survived distance, time, distractions, and even pride. And then came the part no one expected. They did not start by speaking about your appearance. They did not talk about timing or circumstances. Instead, they spoke about the feeling your presence leaves behind. They said that even when you are not near, just thinking about you brings a strange kind of calm. Listen carefully, because people do not use a word like calm unless it touched them deeply. It means your presence reached a quiet place inside them. It means your memory brought peace to a space where there used to be noise. The other person asked, "Then why have you not said more?" This time the answer came quickly, because some things feel too important to speak about carelessly. That one line carried more truth than they meant to show. Many people guard their deepest feelings, not because those feelings are weak, but because they matter so much that saying them aloud feels dangerous. They were not protecting emptiness. They were protecting meaning. Then came a sentence so direct that even the listener went quiet after hearing it. They admitted that sometimes they wonder if you really understand how much you change the way they think. And that was the moment everything shifted. Maybe you never saw the exact second your presence began to affect them. Maybe it happened slowly. Maybe neither of you noticed at first. But inside them, that change became impossible to forget. Something about you settled deeper than normal memory. Something stayed. Then the listener asked another question, soft and careful. What are you afraid of? For the first time, their voice dropped almost to a whisper. They admitted that what they feel may already be much bigger than they ever planned for. Think about that. Bigger than planned means your importance grew in silence. Bigger than planned means what began small did not stay small. Then your name was spoken again, and this time it was spoken with such softness that even hearing it seemed to change the room. Then came the final question. If they were standing here right now, what would you say? Once more, silence filled the space. But this silence was different. It was not uncertainty, it was depth. And after a few moments, they answered. They said they would probably tell you that you matter far more than you realize. Don't skip this part, because some words do not fade after they are spoken. Some words stay alive because they come from a place that has waited too long to be heard. But the conversation was still not over. The listener looked at them with care and asked one last thing. When did you first realize they were becoming important to you? That question changed everything. Their face shifted at once. They lowered their eyes and searched through old memories, almost one by one, trying to find where it all truly started. For a long moment they said nothing. Then at last, they spoke. It was not one huge moment, they said. It was many small moments that refused to disappear. And that answer changed the whole meaning of the conversation. Small moments are never as small as they look. A voice remembered without warning. A simple message read again during quiet hours. A smile that returns to the mind for no clear reason. A sentence that keeps replaying. A kind act that should have faded, but never did. These things are not random. They are signs that someone left a mark much deeper than they meant to admit. The listener understood at once and asked, "What kind of moments?" For the first time, a small smile appeared. It was quiet, almost hidden, but it was real. They spoke about the times you listened when no one else really listened. They remembered how you showed kindness without wanting anything back. They remembered the way ordinary conversations with you somehow felt important. They remembered how you noticed things other people ignored. Most of all, they remembered how they felt when they were with you. Because sometimes people do not fall only for moments. Sometimes they fall for the feeling those moments create. And that feeling stayed. Even after distance, even after silence, even after time moved on. No matter how much they tried to keep going, pieces of you kept returning to their thoughts. The listener could now see clearly that this was no longer simple affection. It had become something deeper, something lasting, something not easy to forget. And maybe without even knowing it, you became part of their inner world. You became a part they carry every single day, whether they speak of it or not, whether they admit it or not. Because some connections are not measured by words, they are measured by what remains when everything else fades. And somehow through all the changes, all the noise, and all the passing days, you remained. That is why your name still carries feeling. That is why your memory still brings peace. That is why deep inside, they know what they feel cannot be ignored forever. Then words came that sounded like they had been waiting inside them for a long time. They spoke about the way you communicate without trying too hard. They spoke about how ordinary things feel different when you are involved. They admitted that they remember details they never expected to remember. Small details, simple moments, things that should have disappeared long ago, yet somehow stayed. That honesty surprised even them, because people usually do not realize how deeply someone has affected them until they begin speaking about it out loud. Stay with me, because this was the point where the conversation became impossible to brush aside. The listener leaned closer and quietly said they noticed much more than they pretended, and for the first time, there was no denial, only a quiet admission. They said they probably noticed far more than they should. Those words carried real weight. People only speak like that when their heart has already moved beyond its usual limits. It was clear they had tried to stay in control. They had tried to stay logical. They had tried to tell themselves these feelings could be managed. But control becomes hard when someone keeps mattering in quiet, unexpected ways. Then your name was spoken once again, and this time it held a warmth that could not be hidden. Not loud, not dramatic, just real. And after saying your name, they added something that changed the meaning of everything before it. They admitted that you have no idea how often you cross their mind. That sentence landed heavily in the silence, because frequency tells the truth. A person may hide emotion, they may hide intention, they may even hide vulnerability. But repeated thoughts reveal what stays alive inside. When someone returns to your mind again and again, it usually means something unfinished still exists in that bond. The listener smiled softly and asked why they keep all of this inside. The answer came quickly, almost like they had asked themselves the same question many times. They explained that when something matters too much, every word starts to matter too. You become careful, you weigh every sentence, you wonder if your meaning will be understood. That was not fear, that was value. Carefulness appears when someone does not want something precious to be misunderstood. Do not go anywhere because the strongest reveal had not arrived yet. Then the listener asked one more question. What would surprise them most if they heard you speaking right now? For the first time, there was no long pause. The answer came directly. They admitted that they were speaking about you with more honesty in this moment than they ever had anywhere else. That confession changed the whole atmosphere. Private honesty often carries more truth than public words ever do. In that moment, they were not trying to impress anyone. They were not performing. They were not protecting an image. They were simply speaking a truth that had become too heavy to deny. Then came another sentence so unexpected that even the listener fell silent. They admitted that sometimes they hear something ordinary during the day, and somehow it makes them think of you right away. Think about what that means. When simple moments become tied to someone, that person has moved beyond attention. Their memory starts appearing naturally inside everyday life. A voice, a phrase, a place, a song, a passing thought, a certain hour of the day. Suddenly, anything can become connected to you. And still, the conversation kept getting deeper. The listener gently asked whether they believed you would ever accept any of this, or even believe it. A small pause followed, then came a quiet answer. They said you probably would not believe it because they have never shown how much still lives inside their thoughts. That one line explained so much. Not every feeling arrives in a loud way. Some emotions stay hidden because the person carrying them is still trying to understand them. Some truths stay behind silence because silence feels safer than saying too much too soon. And yet, even with all of that, the truth still found its way out that day. Before the conversation ended, one final sentence slipped free. It sounded like a private truth that had accidentally made it into the open. They admitted that if you ever knew everything they had shared in that conversation, you would finally understand why forgetting you never became easy. Those words stayed hanging in the room. No one rushed to reply. No one broke the silence. Some words feel too complete to interrupt. But what happened next said even more, because the conversation did not really end in that room. It kept going later, inside their own mind. When the moment should have been over, something unexpected happened. The person you loved did not leave right away. They stood there for a few extra seconds, as if something unfinished was still pressing on their heart. The listener noticed the silence, and sometimes silence creates enough space for the deepest truths to finally rise. That is exactly what happened. Without being asked another question, they suddenly spoke again. Their voice was slower now, softer, more thoughtful. They admitted there was something strange about all of this. Even when they decide not to think about you, something always brings you back into their mind. Those words came without planning, no hesitation, no attempt to change the subject, just honesty, arriving on its own. And the listener understood at once that this was no longer an ordinary conversation. Then another silence came, even deeper than the ones before. Because once truth begins, more truth usually follows. After a few moments, they continued, They said these thoughts return in the middle of normal life without warning, and somehow each time they come back, they feel stronger than before. That carried enormous meaning. Random thoughts do not keep returning with greater force unless the connection behind them is still alive. Passing memories fade, temporary feelings grow weak, but emotions that come back stronger usually have roots much deeper than simple attention. Then the listener asked carefully, what returns first? Is it the memory, the feeling, or the unanswered question? After a short pause, the answer came. It is the feeling. That answer mattered more than almost anything else they had said. A memory can appear by accident. A feeling is different. A feeling returns because something inside still recognizes meaning. A feeling returns because something remains unfinished. This time they did not say your name right away. They just looked down and a faint smile touched their face, almost as if they were quietly recognizing something within themselves. Then they spoke in a softer voice and admitted that some people stay in your thoughts in a way that never asks permission. That line stayed in the air. Ordinary memories are easy to explain. This was not ordinary. This was something that appears on its own and stays present even while life keeps moving in other directions. Stay until the end because there was still more truth waiting. The listener asked one final question. What happens whenever their name enters your mind? This time there was no hesitation, no effort to avoid the truth. They answered plainly. For one brief moment, everything else becomes less important. That confession carried more power than they meant to reveal, because when someone says everything else fades, even for a second, it shows where their heart naturally turns. And in that quiet admission, something became clear. No matter how busy life gets, no matter how much time passes, your presence inside them has never fully gone away. Then another sentence followed, spoken carefully, almost as if they knew saying it out loud would reveal much more than they wanted. They admitted that they had begun noticing details they never imagined they would care about. The listener, now fully drawn in, asked what kind of details. There was a quiet breath, a short pause, and then the answer came slowly. They spoke about the way you talk, certain words you often say, the expressions on your face when you are excited, thoughtful, or silent, even the little things most people would never think twice about. Small habits, tiny reactions, little details that seem meaningless to everyone else. And yet those details stayed. That answer explained everything hidden beneath the surface. Attention always reveals value. People do not remember the smallest parts of someone unless those parts have quietly become important. No one holds on to the ordinary details of another person by accident. Those memories stay because something deeper has already begun to form. Then the listener said softly that they sounded like someone who had spent a lot of time thinking about all this. And for the first time, there was no denial, no nervous laugh, no attempt to make it smaller. Instead, they gave an answer that changed the whole feeling of the moment. They admitted that maybe they had thought about you far more than anyone realizes. Those words landed hard. Hidden thoughts often carry more truth than visible actions. What people show in public may reveal only a small part of what exists inside them. What they think in private is often deeper, more personal, more honest. Then something unexpected happened. They admitted that sometimes they wonder if you can somehow feel any of this without ever hearing it spoken aloud. That was not a casual sentence. People do not ask themselves something like that unless their feelings have already moved far beyond curiosity, because no one wonders whether another person can sense their thoughts unless those thoughts have become constant enough to matter in a serious way. Stay with this, because something important was still waiting to be said. Then the listener asked one last question before the moment changed again. If you were standing here right now and heard everything, what would be the hardest thing for them to admit? This time the silence lasted longer. Not empty silence, thoughtful silence. The kind that comes when someone stands very close to a truth they rarely let themselves touch. At last the answer came, and it came with unusual honesty. They admitted that they had spent a long time acting as if everything was normal, while carrying far more feelings than they ever expected. That sentence quietly revealed everything. Trying to act normal means something inside has already changed. Carrying more than expected means emotions have traveled much farther than planned. Sometimes people keep smiling, they keep working, they keep moving through their days as if nothing is different. But deep inside, they already know something has shifted. Then, before leaving, they added one more line, and it stayed in the air long after it was spoken. But what happened after they walked away revealed even more than the words. The conversation should have ended there. It should have been finished, but it was not. Because sometimes the deepest truth is not found in what someone says while sitting in a room. Sometimes it appears in what they do right after. The person you love took only a few steps before stopping. No one called out. Nothing interrupted them. No one asked anything more. They stopped because their own thoughts had suddenly become louder than everything around them. For several seconds they stood still, staring at nothing, almost replaying every word they had just spoken. Then, very softly, almost as if speaking only to themselves, they repeated your name again. That moment mattered. People repeat a name in silence only when the feeling tied to that name is still alive. Even after the conversation ends, even after everyone else has moved on. That is when the listener, who had not fully left, asked one final, unexpected question. Why do you always go quiet after talking about them? This time there was no attempt to hide. The answer came at once. They said that every time they speak honestly about you, they realize how much they still leave unsaid. And that changed the meaning of everything before it. It showed that the earlier conversation was not the full truth. It was only the part that managed to escape, only the part that felt safe enough to say. There was still more beneath the surface. Then the listener asked what remained unsaid. A longer silence followed. Not an empty silence, but a reflective one. The kind that appears when someone is standing close to a truth they usually keep locked away. Finally, in a lower voice, they answered, "Some days they try to focus completely on work, responsibilities, and daily life. But even on those days, something small always reminds them of you before the day ends." That answer was quiet but powerful. Hidden remembrance is often stronger than spoken attention. If someone appears in your thoughts during ordinary hours, it means they are no longer simply remembered. They have become part of the rhythm of your everyday life. They live inside routines, habits, ordinary spaces. Then another question came. What kind of small things bring them back? And this answer came almost right away, as if those moments had already been counted many times in private. They mentioned a familiar phrase, a sound, a certain place, a passing conversation, a simple moment that suddenly feels tied to you for reasons they cannot fully explain. Sometimes it happens while walking, sometimes while driving, sometimes in the middle of completely ordinary moments when nothing special is happening at all. And then suddenly, there you are again inside their thoughts. That kind of connection cannot be forced. It appears naturally, quietly. It stays. So, if you ever wondered whether your presence truly mattered more than they showed, this is your answer. Not everything important is spoken loudly. Not everything real arrives in a dramatic way. Some truths live in pauses, in repeated thoughts, in quiet confessions, in the name someone says again when no one is listening. And if there is one thing this whole moment revealed, it is this. You stayed with them far longer and far deeper than they ever meant to admit.